Hey guys, great to see you. Joe here, and welcome to another lesson, and thank you very much indeed for joining me. Okay, so in this lesson we're going to take a look at a few different ideas to kind of help you with your guitar playing, yeah? And so they're kind of things which generally can be overlooked, I feel, because I think that when people are learning guitar, there's a tendency to learn a song. That's a great way into learning the guitar, is to learn a song. You know, there's nothing more interesting than doing that. But what tends to happen is that we can kind of get carried away down that path whereby all we actually do is learn songs. And that's no bad thing, yeah, because we will improve as guitarists if we do that, because generally what we'll do is we'll start out with a simple song and then progressively try to learn more difficult songs. So as you can see, you are going to progress as a guitarist. But generally what you'll find with that approach is that there are lots of little holes in your knowledge, if you like. And so I've met many people over the years with my teaching whereby they can play a number of songs very well, and you know, they're kind of technique wise and everything else is reasonably good. But when it actually comes to understanding what it is that they're doing, then this is where it can sometimes break down, because they don't really have a fundamental knowledge of what it is that they're doing. Now, obviously, to be a complete musician, it makes sense to have a kind of in-depth knowledge of everything that you're doing, because that is going to help you further down the road. You know, for example, if you're interested in playing lead guitar and things like that, then there are certain things that can really facilitate your learning. Okay, so I'd like to touch on some of those kind of things in this lesson. So let's zoom on in and I'll talk to you about some of the kind of things that I have in mind. Okay, so like I say, it's really important to be able to combine your knowledge of playing songs to a little bit of theoretical knowledge, because without this we're undoubtedly going to encounter problems further down the road. Okay, now I know you're all very familiar, at least I hope so, with the names of the strings. So we have E, B, G, D, A and E. So that's the most fundamental thing to know in a sense, and I'm sure that you all know that. But one of the things that we really need to try and do, and we can do this over time, there's no rush to do this or any of these things that I'm going to show you. It's just that we make a little bit of time in our practice schedule to incorporate some of these ideas, and then you'll end up with a much fuller knowledge of your guitar playing. So one of the kind of things that people should be looking to do if they can't already is to learn the notes across the fingerboard. Now, I've talked about this before on several videos, and I'll put some links down below to some previous videos that I've done which may help you with some of these ideas. Now, there's a tendency for us to know, for example, the strings on the, the thin string here, the E, and the E here. Because they're the same, we know that any fretted notes are going to be the same on the first and the sixth strings. Okay, so generally people's knowledge of these is not too bad. Now, I'm guessing that most of you know the musical alphabet. That's very important, and as I say, I've done a lesson on this which I'll put a link to down below. So if we're starting on this first fret here, the bottom on the first string, we know we've got an F sharp, a G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D, and so on and so forth. We just know that there are no sharps and flats between E and F and B and C. Okay, they're the only two exceptions. So we know, if we know some of these kind of notes, as I say, on this bottom string, then they're the same up here on the thick string, yeah, the E string at the top here. So we have E open, and then F, and F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, and so on. So that's a very basic thing, okay? But then our knowledge can kind of start to fall apart once we get to the other strings. So like the B, the G, the D, and the A. Okay, sometimes we struggle a little bit to find out, what the notes are there if we're asked very quickly or something like that. Now, as I say, this should be done on a gradual basis. That's very important. But what I want to kind of do is show you some roadmaps and kind of expand your knowledge of the fingerboard. Okay, so try and when you're practicing, as I say, try and include a little bit of time for getting to know the names of the notes across the fingerboard. All right, now, for example, this first note here on the first fret of the second string is a C. Okay, now that is a C. Now, if we put our ring finger up here on the fifth string of the third fret, that's a C as well. Okay, so this kind of figure, it can be a very, very handy thing to know where, for example, all the C's are in this exercise, because let's just say that we're soloing in the key of C, then this becomes very important. If we're ever going to be able to improvise, we need to know where these notes are, we need to know what they are and where they live, okay? So as I say, this is a C here, and then if we go up 1, 2 frets and we go to the fifth string, then we have another C, okay? Now if we move here and we play an octave, okay? So we're now on the third string of the fifth fret and we have another C, okay? So we need to kind of memorize these shapes, if you like. 2 C's there, 2 C's there. Now if we come to this C, okay, and we go up to the 8th fret, first string, we have another C, yeah? Now we know that the top and bottom strings are the same, so therefore we know that this is a C. Okay, and then again we can do an octave, and we know that that's a C. Okay, and then if we go here, and we're on, by the way, here, we're on the 10th fret, and we're on the 4th string, so that's a C. And then if we go up to the 2nd string, 13th fret, we have another C, and we're back to our position whereby this is a C and this is a C, same as here. Now this applies with any note, so let's take a D, okay? So we know that that's a C and that is a D, so the same thing applies. So if that is a D and we go up 2 frets and play on the 5th string, we know that that's a D. We do the same again, we move up to this D and we play an octave. Okay, so our first one is 5th string, 5th fret, and then we move on to the 3rd string of the 7th fret. We know that that's a D. Okay, and then we just apply these things again. Okay, so we're now on the 7th fret, 3rd string, and if we do the same thing again, we go up 3 frets this time, 1, 2, 3, and we have a D. And then, like we said, if it is a D here on the bottom, it is a D here as well. Then we can go and play an octave again, we have a D, and then again we're playing an octave. Okay, so we have another D. So you can see this is a kind of quick way of working out where all the notes are, in this case C's and D's. So this is a very, very good method for quickly finding out where we are on the fingerboard, and we can apply that to any note. Okay, so let's say C sharp. Let's just, it's a little bit of an unusual note. Okay, same method. So you see, by applying this very kind of basic shapes, we can navigate through the fingerboard, okay? And we can give ourselves like a roadmap, which will really help us. That's just a very powerful thing in itself. So now you're in a position whereby if you're playing in E, let's say, for example, We know that this is a C, we know that this is a D, we know that this is an E. Okay, so we can apply our little principle again. We know that they're both E's. We know that they're both E's. We know that they're both E's. They're both E's. They're both E's. So I'm sure you get the idea. Let's go back to our C notes, yeah? And to kind of do a major scale is very, very simple, okay? Because scales are really important. It's not just the kind of pentatonic which is important. All scales have their own importance, if you like, and it's good that we have a working knowledge of all of these things, because the wider our knowledge is, then, you know, the better kind of equipped we are to do the type of things that we'd like to do. So it's these are very fundamental things, and things that we really need to just dedicate a little bit of time to, and it will really, if you do this early on in your playing, then it's going to be with you right throughout your playing, and you will grow in many, many ways, not just kind of playing songs, but having a much better understanding as to what you're doing. Yeah. So for example, many people can play a C chord, but not everybody can tell you what notes make up a C chord. Okay? And this is important, because what we kind of start to realise is, hang on a minute, I'm playing all these songs and everything else, which is great in its own way, but I couldn't actually tell you what notes make up the chord. Well, obviously that's not a position we want to be in, because, you know, we're selling ourselves short in a sense. So it makes a little bit of sense for us to invest a little bit of time into figuring some of these things out. Now, for example, with a C chord, there are 3 notes which make up any major chord, okay? And that's the first, the third, and the fifth degree of the scale, if you like. So the first note, you know, if we're playing a C chord, then would be a C. Okay, so this is a C note here. And this is a C note. And that goes back to our previous kind of lesson where we were talking about the road maps, yeah? That's what we were doing with the C. So we know that there's a C in the chord. Now, if we were to cycle through the C scale, okay, we'd have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Okay, now what we're looking for is the 1 and then the 3. So we've got C, D, E. Okay, E is our third note, F is our fourth, and G is our fifth. So now we know our C chord is made up of the notes C, E, and G, and that is called a major triad. Okay, so when we play this note, we have a C, an E, and a G. And then often we have other notes which repeat. So that's a C, and that's an E. And that's why we could play this note here as well for a C. Okay? So it's just very simple things like that. You begin to understand, right, okay, so that's why you can add that note, because it belongs to that chord. A C, E, and a G. So that's how we work out what major chords are. We take the first, the third, and the fifth degree of the scale to create the major chord. So for a minor chord, all we need to do is we need to flatten the third note. To flatten a note, we just lower the note by a semitone. Okay, so given that this note here, this E, is our third note, we need to flatten it, which means going to here. Okay, so that's an E flat. So now we have, and that is a C minor. If we just play those 3 notes, the third, fourth, and fifth strings. Okay, and the only difference is that we've flattened the E here. So that's how we come up with a minor chord. Okay, And now I don't want to overload you with information, because if you haven't done this type of thing before, then it can kind of get a little bit complicated. So just think that over. We've only covered some real basic stuff there, but as I say, if you incorporate this as you go along and we do more of this type of stuff, then you're going to have much more complete knowledge. Okay, now just before we finish off, I will show you how to create a major scale and a minor scale if you don't already know. So let's take this C note. Now, to create a major scale, we need to follow a formula, and that formula is tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Okay? Now, a tone is 2 frets, so it could be from here to here. Okay, so from this, we're on the 2nd string, so from the 1st fret to the 3rd fret would be a tone, but from the 1st fret to the 2nd fret would be a semitone. Okay, now given that that's all we need to know, and we know that the major scale is tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. So we go root note first, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Okay, one more time. Root, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. We always end on the note which we started with. So this is a C, this is a C. Now you can do that anywhere you like on the guitar. So let's just take this note here, okay? So we're on the G string now. So this is like a G sharp. Now we want to create a scale of G sharp. We just say that's the root. We go tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. So that's how we create a major scale. To create a minor scale, okay, a natural minor scale, which is the one that we tend to use, the formula changes. And that formula becomes tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. So if we're going to do a C minor scale, we start with the root again, which is C. Then we go a tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. And that is a natural minor scale. One more time. Root, C, tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. So that's how we create a minor scale. Now, that may not seem much, but that's a great big step forward if you haven't done this type of thing before, and something for you to think about. Now, one final thing to bear in mind when you're doing this is to try and name the notes as you're playing them. So if we go back to our C major scale, we have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And by naming them as we play them, it means that over time we really get to know where all the notes are on the fingerboard. So I know this is something that I've looked at before, but I'm really looking to help out any of you who haven't thought about these things before. Okay, so I apologize if you know this type of thing already, then you can move on to a different lesson or whatever. But I'm just looking to reach out for the people who haven't really thought about these things, and hopefully it will help you. So I look forward to seeing you soon with another lesson, guys. In the meantime, take care.